There's a 4-inch crustacean living in coral reefs that can punch with the force of a .22 caliber bullet. Underwater, the acceleration is so extreme, 10,000 times the force of gravity, that the water around its strike literally boils, creates a shockwave, a flash of light, and temperatures approaching the surface of the sun. For decades, scientists studied this creature in awe. The mantis shrimp, stomatopod, a predator so absurdly overpowered that it seems like evolution was showing off. And the eyes, those eyes, the most complex visual system ever discovered in the animal kingdom. 16 types of color receptors. Humans have 3, dogs have 2. This shrimp has 16. It can see colors we can't imagine. Ultraviolet, polarized light, a visual spectrum so vast it makes our perception of reality look like a child's coloring book. Scientists declared it the ultimate predator. Perfect vision, devastating strike, built by evolution to be unstoppable. Then, in 2014, researchers decided to actually test the vision, to see just how precisely these incredible eyes could perceive color. And what they discovered broke everything we thought we understood about sensory evolution. The mantis shrimp, with the most complex eyes on Earth, has terrible color vision. Not just mediocre, terrible, worse than most fish, possibly worse than humans. The scientific community had a collective crisis, because if the 16 color receptors aren't for seeing color accurately, what are they for? Why would evolution build the biological equivalent of a supercomputer and then use it to run calculator functions? And the punch. That devastating, physics-defying strike. We thought we understood it. Hydraulic pressure, muscle force, simple biomechanics scaled to extremes. Wrong. The mechanism is so sophisticated, so absurdly over-engineered that we're still discovering new layers of complexity. In 2018, researchers found the strike isn't even meant to kill directly. It's a 2-stage weapon system that no other animal on Earth possesses. And the applications, the real-world technology inspired by mantis shrimp, we're talking military armor, cancer detection devices, ultra-strong materials that shouldn't be possible. For 50 years, we studied this creature, measured it, cataloged it, published papers, and we got almost everything catastrophically wrong. Let's start with the punch, because that's where most people first learn about mantis shrimp, and it's where the misconceptions begin. The mantis shrimp is a stomatopod crustacean. There are over 450 species. They range from 1 inch to 15 inches long. And they're divided into 2 groups based on how they kill, smashers and spearers. Spearers have pointed appendages. They hunt soft-bodied prey like fish, impale them. Standard predator behavior. Smashers are different. Smashers have club-like appendages, calcified hammers at the end of spring-loaded arms, and they use these clubs to obliterate hard-shelled prey. Crabs, snails, clams, anything with a shell gets destroyed. The strike happens in less than 3 milliseconds, faster than a human can blink. The club accelerates at over 10,000 Gs. For context, fighter pilots black out at 9 Gs. Formula 1 drivers experience maybe 6 Gs during a crash. The mantis shrimp's club experiences over 10,000. The speed is absurd, up to 23 meters per second. That's 51 miles per hour, underwater, where water resistance should make that speed impossible. And here's where it gets truly bizarre. The strike is so fast, so violent, that it creates cavitation bubbles, pockets of vacuum in the water. These bubbles collapse almost instantly, and when they collapse, they create a second shockwave, a secondary impact that hits the prey milliseconds after the club. So the prey gets hit twice, once by the club, once by the collapsing cavitation bubble, and the bubble collapse is so energetic it produces light, sonoluminescence, a flash of photons created by the rapid compression of water. The temperatures inside those collapsing bubbles? Over 4,700 degrees Celsius. That's close to the surface of the sun. For a fraction of a second, this 4-inch shrimp is creating solar temperatures in seawater. When scientists first documented this in the 1990s, it seemed like a masterclass in physics. Evolution had created a biological hammer capable of delivering devastating kinetic energy. We assumed the goal was simple: hit hard, crack shell, eat prey. Done. We were wrong. In 2018, researchers at Duke University published a study that changed everything. They filmed mantis shrimp strikes in ultra-high-speed footage and noticed something strange. The first strike rarely killed the prey. It stunned it, disoriented it, but didn't crack the shell completely. Then the shrimp struck again and again, sometimes 5 or 6 times in rapid succession, and only then did the shell break. This didn't make sense. If the strike generates enough force to crack shells, why multiple hits? Why not one devastating blow? So they analyzed the data more carefully and realized the first strike wasn't meant to crack the shell. It was meant to disorient the prey using the shockwave and the light flash from cavitation. The second strike, delivered while the prey was stunned, is what breaks the shell. It's a two-stage attack: stun, then kill, like a boxer using a jab to set up a knockout punch. But here's the truly disturbing part. The light flash from the cavitation bubble isn't a side effect. It's a feature. The prey can see the flash, and it blinds them, temporarily, just long enough for the killing blow. The mantis shrimp weaponized physics. It doesn't just hit hard, it creates a sensory weapon that overwhelms the prey's ability to defend itself. And we only figured this out 5 years ago, after decades of studying these creatures. But the punch isn't even the most interesting part, because the eyes, those impossibly complex eyes, are where we got things most spectacularly wrong. The mantis shrimp has compound eyes like most arthropods, but unlike normal compound eyes, each mantis shrimp eye has 3 distinct regions: trinocular vision in each eye, which means they have 6 separate visual fields analyzing the world simultaneously, and the color receptors, 16 types. Humans have 3 types of cone cells that detect red, green, and blue. Our brains mix those signals to create the full spectrum of color we perceive. Dogs have 2, dichromatic vision, red-green colorblind compared to us. Mantis shrimp have 16 separate photoreceptor types detecting different wavelengths, plus receptors for polarized light, and receptors for ultraviolet, and receptors we still don't fully understand. When this was first discovered in the 1980s, scientists lost their minds. The assumption was obvious. With 16 color receptors, the mantis shrimp must see an explosion of color. A visual reality so rich, so detailed, that human perception would seem blind by comparison. Papers were published, documentaries made. The mantis shrimp became famous for having the most advanced color vision on Earth, and nobody questioned it. Because why would you? 16 receptors, obviously better than 3. Simple math. Then in 2014, Hannah Thoen and her team at the University of Queensland decided to actually test it. They trained mantis shrimp to distinguish between different colors, showed them 2 colored panels, rewarded them for choosing the correct one. It's a standard vision test, used on animals all the time, and it works. You can measure how precisely an animal distinguishes between similar colors. They expected the mantis shrimp to ace it, to distinguish colors with superhuman precision. Instead, the shrimp failed, spectacularly. They could barely tell the difference between colors that were 12 to 25 nanometers apart. For context, humans can distinguish colors just 1 to 4 nanometers apart. The mantis shrimp's color vision isn't super, it's terrible. Objectively, measurably worse than ours. The scientific community went into damage control mode. How could this be possible? 16 receptors should mean better vision. That's how evolution works. More complex equals better, right? Wrong. And if you're sitting there thinking, wait, so what are those 16 receptors actually doing? Make sure you're subscribed, because the answer is so much stranger than anyone predicted. These eyes aren't built for precision. They're built for something completely different, something we only started to understand 2 years ago, and it changes everything we thought we knew about how brains process information. Here's what we got wrong. We assumed the mantis shrimp's brain processes color information the same way ours does. We have 3 receptors. Our brain compares the signals from all 3, does complex calculations, mixes the data, and produces our perception of color. It's a sophisticated system, and it works, but it requires a lot of neural processing, a lot of brain power. The mantis shrimp doesn't do that at all. Instead of comparing signals between receptors, each receptor is basically independent. It's a recognition system, not a comparison system. When light hits a receptor, the shrimp's brain doesn't calculate, it just recognizes. That wavelength equals this color. Done. It's faster, much faster, but far less precise. The mantis shrimp trades accuracy for speed. Why? Because when you're a 4-inch predator living in a coral reef surrounded by things that want to eat you, speed matters more than precision. You don't need to know the exact shade of red. You just need to know red equals danger, move, or blue equals safe, stay. Fast decisions, instant reactions, survival. The 16 receptors aren't for seeing better. They're for deciding faster. And this revelation completely changed how we think about visual processing. Because for decades, neuroscience assumed complex vision required complex neural processing. Big brain equals good vision. The mantis shrimp proved that wrong. You don't need a big brain if you design the sensory system correctly, distribute the processing to the receptors themselves, cut out the middleman. It's genius. And we called it primitive because it didn't work like mammalian vision. But the wrongness doesn't stop there, because we also completely misunderstood what they use those eyes for. In 2016, researchers discovered that mantis shrimp can see and produce polarized light patterns on their bodies. Circular polarization, a type of light manipulation that's invisible to almost every other animal on Earth. They use it to communicate. Secret messages, invisible to predators, invisible to prey, only visible to other mantis shrimp. It's a hidden channel of communication, like having a private radio frequency that nobody else can access. Male mantis shrimp display polarized patterns during courtship. Females respond with their own patterns. It's a visual conversation happening in a spectrum of light that the rest of the reef can't perceive. And we had no idea until 2016. Because we weren't looking for it. We assumed their vision was for hunting and avoiding predators, standard stuff. We never considered they might be using it for encrypted communication. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. In 2020, researchers discovered that mantis shrimp can detect cancer in other animals using polarized light. Cancerous tissue reflects polarized light differently than healthy tissue. It's a measurable difference. And mantis shrimp can see it. We can't, not without specialized equipment. But the mantis shrimp's eyes are naturally tuned to detect these differences. And now, researchers are building cancer detection cameras based on mantis shrimp vision. Polarization-sensitive imaging devices that can spot tumors earlier than conventional methods. A 4-inch shrimp is teaching us how to detect cancer. Let's talk about the clubs. Because the strike mechanism itself is a masterpiece of engineering we completely failed to understand for decades. We knew the strike was fast. We knew it was powerful. We assumed it was just muscle. Really strong muscle attached to a really hard club. Wrong. In 2012, researchers at UC Berkeley did a detailed analysis of the strike mechanism and discovered it's not muscle-powered at all, not directly. The mantis shrimp uses a spring-loaded latch system, like a crossbow or a mousetrap. The muscles don't generate the strike. They load the spring, slowly, building potential energy over several seconds. Then a latch holds everything in place, locked, ready. When the shrimp decides to strike, it releases the latch, and all that stored energy releases in under 3 milliseconds. The club snaps forward with explosive force. It's a mechanical system, not a biological one. Evolution built a crossbow out of chitin and muscle, and the club itself is a composite material. Layered structure, different densities of mineralization, designed to absorb the shock of impact without shattering. The outer layer is incredibly hard, hydroxyapatite crystals, the same material in our bones and teeth, but arranged in a helicoidal structure, spiral layers that distribute force and prevent cracks from propagating. Engineers studied this structure and used it to design ultra-strong composite materials, aircraft components, body armor, helmets. The mantis shrimp's club is tougher than most engineering materials we can manufacture, and it regrows if damaged. Self-repairing armor that can withstand repeated impacts at 10,000 Gs. We've been trying to replicate it for over a decade, and we're still not there. But here's the final revelation that really drives home how wrong we were. In 2023, researchers published a study showing that mantis shrimp can learn from each other. Social learning, cultural transmission. Juvenile mantis shrimp watch adults hunt. They observe the technique, the timing, the angle of attack, and they copy it. This is sophisticated cognition, the kind of behavior we associate with mammals and birds, not crustaceans, not creatures with brains the size of a sesame seed. But the evidence is clear. Mantis shrimp aren't just instinct-driven eating machines. They're learning, adapting, passing knowledge between generations. And if they can do that, what else can they do? What other cognitive abilities are hiding in that tiny brain? We don't know, because we only started asking these questions 2 years ago. So where does this leave us? What do we actually know about the mantis shrimp now? We know the punch is a 2-stage weapon system using physics as a weapon. We know the eyes are built for speed, not precision. We know they communicate in polarized light invisible to predators. We know their clubs are made of materials we can't fully replicate. We know they can learn socially. But here's what we don't know. How does a brain that small coordinate all of this? How do they process polarized light patterns in real time? How do they decide which strike strategy to use? How much can they actually learn? We don't know, because we spent 50 years studying these creatures under the assumption that they were simple, instinct-driven, biological machines optimized for killing. And they're not. They're sophisticated, adaptive. Using sensory systems and biomechanical strategies, we're only beginning to understand. Every answer generates 3 new questions, and time is running out to ask them, because coral reefs are dying, climate change, ocean acidification, pollution. The habitats where mantis shrimp live are disappearing fast. And if we lose them before we understand them, we lose more than a species. We lose a living laboratory for studying materials science, for understanding visual processing, for developing medical imaging, for designing impact-resistant structures. The mantis shrimp isn't just a weird crustacean with a weird punch. It's a biological blueprint for technologies we haven't invented yet, and we almost dismissed it as a simple predator with good eyes. We were wrong about the vision, about the strike, about the intelligence, about the materials, about almost everything. The only thing we got right? It's incredibly dangerous, just not in the ways we thought. Because the real danger of the mantis shrimp isn't the punch. It's the reminder that nature is more sophisticated than we give it credit for, that our assumptions about simple and complex, primitive and advanced are often completely backwards. And somewhere right now, in a coral reef we might never see, there's a mantis shrimp, 4 inches long, punching prey at the speed of a bullet. Seeing light we can't perceive, communicating in colors that don't exist in our reality. It doesn't know it's rewriting material science. It doesn't know it's teaching us about cancer detection. It doesn't know it's spent 50 years making fools of scientists who thought they understood it. It's just hunting, using tools evolution spent millions of years perfecting, while we're still trying to figure out how any of it works. Sleep well.